Hi, this is Heather Christensen with Envisioneering, and I'm here to talk to you today about how to deal with a toxic coworker. You know, the coworker that seems to maybe be jealous of you or just keeps lobbing comments at you that are disrespectful or making you feel really uncomfortable. They might be appearing to sabotage you. So, one of the first things that you need to do when you're thinking about trying to deal with this toxic coworker is your role in the situation. The number one thing you need to keep in mind about your role is this is not about you. It is almost always about the other individual and something that they're struggling with. So if you can keep that in mind as you interact with that individual, that will help you throughout the process. It's also helpful to identify what you need or what your motives are in the conversation, because sometimes our motives or our needs in the conversation get in the way. For example, if I need to feel wanted or accepted, then it's helpful for me to be aware of that in the conversation because that need may get in the way of actually the productive outcome that I think I need. The other thing to keep in mind is don't give in to the us versus them mentality. It's easy for us, and it's kind of a safe place for us to decide, well, that's just how Sally is, or that's just them, or those people. And we're really all in the same boat together. So it's not helpful to shoot at other people in the boat because you don't want to sink the boat. Something to understand about when we feel personally attacked in a situation or we're exposed to a toxic individual on a regular basis, it can cause some self doubt for us. And so the antidote to self doubt is high self care. And there really are three main elements to self care in my experience, that is eating, sleeping, and exercise. And so, if one of these things is lacking in our lives, it's like a three legged stool. It has a tendency to not hold itself up. So, I have some examples of how you would make sure that you were taking care of yourself in order to be the best person you can be in the situation. Be sure you're exercising, take a walk, get a long hug, write, meditate. Some of those things are examples of being able to get some of the frustration off your plate, but then also exercising some self care. Next, it's helpful to identify maybe why they're behaving the way that they are. And as I alluded to about it being not you, not really about you, most of the time, the reason people are behaving the way that they are is because of some deep seated insecurity or some unmet need, whether they're aware of it or not. A lot of times, this is where that toxic behavior is coming from. And then realize it's a growth opportunity for you. You are being challenged and stretched in a different way, and you will inevitably grow from the experience. So think of it as an opportunity to grow. And then the next thing I do is plan your response. So plan how you're going to respond to the next person or the next time the situation occurs. And I ask myself three questions when I'm doing that. First, what do I know for sure? Often your pain isn't from your reality, it is from the story you're telling yourself around your reality. So ask yourself, what do I know for sure? And be really critical of, is this really what I know for sure? And then number two, ask, what can I do to help? How can you participate in helping the situation be better or more productive in the future? And then the third is, what would great look like? So, what would me being great look like in this situation? And then go be great. The next thing is to make sure that you've established healthy boundaries. A lot of times we've allowed our boundaries to be crossed, and that's why this toxic behavior is taking place in the first place. And so you don't have to allow yourself to be abused, but identify what boundaries you need to reestablish and then find a productive way to say, this is something I've been doing and I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to allow this to occur. Try to keep you, when you're talking to the individual, out of the situation, but talk about what I will tolerate or what I will do or accept in the future. And then as you think about the conversation you're going to have, it helps to frame your mental perspective because it helps you decide how you're going to show up in the situation. And in this case, I keep three things in mind.
First, I focus on responding rather than reacting. When we're in more of a responsive mode, we're responding to what's being said instead of being in more of a reactionary mode where we're just kind of firing back responses or reactions to what the individual is saying to us. The second thing I focus on is being curious. There's a lot of power in curiosity. And so I just try to show up being curious and maintaining an open mind about what's going to show up. And the third thing is I assume positive intent. I try to assume that what the individual is saying to me every time, they are intending for me to receive that in a positive way. That keeps me out of trouble and keeps me from telling myself a story about how that person's being or what they're trying to do to me. So it just keeps me in the right frame of mind. The next thing I do is try to frame up some questions that I'm going to ask the individual. And I try very hard to avoid saying you to the individual, and I use I as much as I possibly can. I avoid asking questions that start with why. If you have to ask a question that starts with why, try to frame it up as a what question. And if you have some questions about how to do that, you can enter it in the comments or any other questions. Please enter those in the comments below and we'll address that. But some of the questions I ask are, I'm curious about this, or tell me more, or I noticed this.
And when you ask questions, you might get criticism back. And the thing to keep in mind is you should take criticism from this individual with a grain of salt. My guiding principle in this is don't take or internalize criticism from someone that you would never ask for advice. And the last thing is to maybe get some input from someone else. If this is a boss, you have to be very, very careful to focus on the problem rather than asking them to solve the situation. It's best if you try to solve the situation with the individual first. If you're concerned about it, you can involve a mediator such as a boss. And then in the conversation, you also want to focus on the problem instead of behaviors or the individual, accusing the individual. So you want to approach it with as little blame as possible and more just curiosity and assuming positive intent. I hope this helps you deal with some of the people that make your life the most challenging and stress you out. If you'd like more information or to watch more of these videos, you can follow me on social. I'm on Facebook under Envisioneering LLC, on Instagram under Heather the Envisioneer, and on LinkedIn under Heather-Christensen-PE. Thanks and have a great day.